All right, y'all. Took a week off and now we back again. It's your boy B Phil and we in it to win. Yo, it's 11:21 and we're gonna do the trade ideas for this week. And it was good, y'all. I took a little trip for work and learned a lot of stuff along the way. So today we are back and we're ready to go. So let's go ahead and check out the euro. And I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a few more to our charts. Let's go ahead and add some more pairs to this chart. And let's reorganize this, right? Because we got stocks and we got all day, every day. And let's go ahead and get these on here, right? All right, let's go to the NASDAQ and see what we're looking at. Okay, so I did draw something on here because as you can see, it looks like we're going to start to come down to fill this imbalance, right? We had previously this larger break of structure. Now, if we were to actually look, we didn't really see anything break until here. So, man, I am disoriented here. So, as you can see here, right, we didn't have a body break until there. So we have breakdown, right? And we're looking for it to come mitigate. It came in here to mitigate. And finally, we broke up. We say, well, where did that break come from? It came from somewhere down into here, right? So let's go ahead. We could probably refine it to something like that. We could pull this arrow down here. So let's go ahead and actually delete this. And now we're looking for it to come back down here before ultimately going higher. So we have to ask ourselves, well, one, are we profitable? Currently, we're not consistently profitable. So then the next question is, do we try and look for a short to come down into this zone, right? So do we start to look for a short to come down into here to go higher, right? So boom, right? Needle, boom, bam, right? Do we look for that? That's the real question here, ultimately. Do we start getting hyper focused on these lower time frames and start to look for, because if you can see, I mean, there is a large area to come down here. So why wouldn't it come down there, right? And that's what I would say. So we could probably refine it down to that particular wick. Now, if we start to go into price action here, let's go ahead and remove market cipher there. And I think I need to turn this music down just a little bit because it's in my ear quite loud. There we go. And we'll turn you all up on the soundboard. There we go. Okay, so if we start to actually go in here now, we're looking at the 1 hour. And we're looking at price action here. And we can clearly see, right, like you all can see this, right? And we finally broke down, came back up, retested, right? And then we finally broke down again. And then we finally broke up. So we could say, well, maybe we have some intermediate candlestick structure in here, right? In here, or even in here somewhere, right? And if we have something in here, then we can make the argument that we have something in here, we have something in here. And then, of course, this will probably be a break in there somewhere. So let's go ahead and remove all of that. And let's just go with this thesis that we had this last breakdown. So then now we're looking for a break above this particular wick. And we saw that break above this wick. And we could really say that, okay, well, that's the zone here. And then we're looking, or we're going to say, okay, well, where are the refinements, right? Because if we look at this entire MB, we could say, okay, well, that's a valid zone to probably trade off of if it comes back down into here to go higher. But then we start to think, okay, well, if we're going to start trading these lower time frames, we probably want some refinements. So we say break here. We say, well, where did that last move come from? It came from somewhere in here. So this technically is still a valid demand zone inside this overall MB. So what if we start to go in a little bit deeper, right? We zoom in a little bit more, just a tad bit more, Mike. I don't talk like that. I'm sorry for all my people who talk like that, and I tried to impersonate you. My apologies there. So You see this, there's a long wick down, there's a big wick down, and we're starting to move up, come down, right? So we break some particular structure in here. So if we're looking and we see this move down, we see this a nice little move back, right? And we start to see these breaks up, and then, yeah, break down, and we finally come up. So then we could say on the 30-minute, we had some particular down move before this large up move, and we could refine that entire MB down here to intermediate, very lower time frame. But let's go back up again. And if we're looking at the daily, ultimately, all right, so we have this breakdown. So we're something in there because we finally had a body close. This didn't count. We finally had a body close. So now we're something like this, right, on the daily. So this is for the sake of the actual daily time frame. We would be looking for a confirmation in here. So I just wanted to go ahead and zoom back out and make sure we're all on the same page here, because I didn't look at the daily and I didn't put that MB there. So then we start to really go down into the weeds, and we're like, okay, well, this is the daily zone. So maybe we can go ahead and say, well, this is a refinement. And maybe we just keep all these on the charts for now so that we can track them via video to say, hey, this particular zone looked like it worked, and it's probably a lower time frame zone because it's inside this bigger area. And maybe that gives us some insight going forward, which is what we're looking for ultimately. So on the NASDAQ, we can clearly see that we're pretty much starting to go down into this short-term bearish push. So last we had, let's go ahead and look at this intermediate candlestick structure, right? Down, up, right? Came back down, finally broke up. And now this was the range until we came down into here. We had a body close, right? We had a body close and we finally came back up. So realistically, if we're looking at intermediate candlestick structure, we had this body close, which means that this area in here, that's an MB. So we could say on the 1 hour, we're actually, whoa, hold up. Let's get this square. Could say on the 1 hour, this is what we're looking at here, right? This was the last MB that we potentially be looking at because we did have a body close. I mean, a very weak body close, if at that. Then we say, okay, well, boom, where did that come from? Oh, we could say here, and then we could say, okay, well, broke below that. So then now we're actually in here, which we can go ahead, find a supply zone there. And then now all we're waiting for is price to come back into here to go short. You see how that works? Because ultimately, I'd say that we're bullish, and we would definitely want to see it come down into here before we ultimately think we're going to take off to the moon. But it's okay because, well, we're actually just getting an idea of how this moves, and we're documenting it. So let's go ahead and put this as a supply zone. This is the US 100 on Oanda. So interesting. Oh, I have this on log. Crazy. Okay, so there we go. Wow, I had it logarithmically. Okay, so now we're just gonna go ahead and wait for price to come up into there, and we're gonna leave it at that. We're gonna leave it at that 1 hour zone. Right? We could micro, right? We could extreme micro, yet again, like we typically do. And I mean, if we were microing it, then we could say, well, let's look left. Inside here, right, we had this push up, and then we had to push down. Then we had some intermediate, and we had to push up, right? Break. So this entire area is valid. So you probably would look for something in there. Look for it to come down to there before actually buying up. Or you could say, okay, well, realistically, it came from somewhere in here. And it looks like we already met some particular area in there. So then we come here, we have this slight pullback, and we had a breakdown, right? And then we have it sideways, right? We have a small little breakdown. We have a sideways, boom, break up. And we could say, okay, in here, we're just following price, right? Left to right. And this is low time frame, right? So we could actually make an argument that now we're actually in this area here yet again. So something in here, and I'm pretty sure if we went down to the 1 minute, we could possibly find some very, very micro unmitigated zone. Well, let's see. Let's see if we can find something. Nah, actually, I don't think we can. Right? Mitigation of the open. Nah. I mean, you could argue potentially, this is one candle though, but look at that, it's mitigated. So, I mean, we'd have to go down lower, and I don't really like any lower zone than that. So then, well, what would you say then, Brandon? Well, I would say maybe we start to continue to look left, and we go back up to the 5 minute real quick. And we say, okay, well, what's the next best thing? Well, you can see here, we had the open mitigated, right? And open came down here and mitigated it, and it took off. So we could say about 50% of this if we were actually looking for a trade here. So we could do something like this. And yeah, this green line right here, that's what we could potentially look for mitigation there before looking for a potential buy to go higher, to ultimately go lower, right? To go lower, to go higher. But again, that's if we wanted to go ahead and test this theory, which is, well, actually, let's do this. Why not? We like testing, we like forward testing theories, and we don't get always a good time to test these theories forward. So let's go ahead and leave that there. We're going to do lower time frame trade from that, which means that if we're looking for it to shoot down there, then we're probably bearish in here for now, right? And we could potentially see a large move. I mean, we're already negative 8.83% on the day, so we're going to leave that there, and we're going to go on to the euro. All right, we're coming up on 15 minutes here, 13:08 to be more exact. So let's be cognizant of the time. So we're tracking this. All right, great. So it looks to me, if I'm looking on the daily time frame, it's looking like the euro is starting to move a little bit more bear or bullish here, right? So we can look at price action. We could say, okay, well, it came up a little bit, came down, moved sideways, and then bang, finally broke above. So then this MB is valid, and we could actually use this to say, hey, if it comes into here, we'll find a trade. Or we could say, okay, well, where did this breakup come from? Where did this come from? Well, you could say in here, or you could say down into here. So, well, let's go ahead and put a demand zone. Boom. Right here. And this is a daily, right? So we want to see it start to move down and do something like that. Does Forex move like that? That's a good question. That is a very good question. I'm glad you all asked that, right? So you could actually make an argument, maybe this wick. Man, tough to say on the 6 hour. Let's zoom in. Let's look at 4 hour, maybe a 3 hour. I mean, you could say this, right? Because open, I guess it partially mitigated. Man, that's a very small area to go off of. Yeah. I think one thing we do know though is that we're probably in a bearish leg right now. Oops. So I'd say we could look for shorts to go down, because I think ultimately we probably want to come down into here somewhere at least, right? At the very least. But then that might ask the question, okay, well, where are we looking for shorts in here? And to be quite frank, probably nowhere, because I don't like that price action. So let's go to EG. Looks like we had some stuff going on here. Let's move these drawings. Looks like we completely shot up here. Maybe down in here somewhere. Possibly. Open. This is actually like this is definitely almost a perfect zone here. We'll potentially see something like that. And what am I looking at? What's Brandon looking at? So see price is meandering. Boom. It finally comes down. It finally breaks up. So we could say right here, this was a valid MB here, and then we refine it to a demand zone inside of this mid block. And then it keeps pushing up, and it looks like it's starting to hit a pretty good sideways motion here. And we start to zoom in a bit, and then we can start to get a better picture of what's actually going on, right? And if we're saying this is now a bearish leg, then we could start looking. It looks like we're in a nice little area here. So potentially we have this last break. We had to break up. Bam, bang. So really we were working with this all the way back here, because you see it breaks down, then it finally breaks above right here. So then we're waiting for a break above here or a break below here to validate this overall MB. Then we look for unmitigated zones inside here, mitigation of the open, but we have it fall off. So we could potentially use this area here, but more recent, right? We say boom, break down here. Well, it opened up and then it came down. So maybe something in here, potentially something in there. So let's go ahead and put an alert. And we're going to go ahead and leave that as supply zone for now. Let's go to gold. All right, gold. Looks like we're starting to move bullish. Kind of. Actually, no. It's still bearish, right? Unless we're counting something like that. Because we start to move sideways here, then we finally break out. That we could say that it's breaking this structure here if we wanted a reason, but maybe everybody loves gold now, right? So we could actually use that as a potential area because it has a nice little pullback there. Could say something like that, and then we can look for a nice demand zone. And honestly, this is perfect right here. Absolutely beautiful on the daily. So again, just like everything else, we'd say we're in a bearish leg right now. Short-term bearish, right? That's when we make sure we're clear on that. We're short-term. So we have some stopping action here, and then we probably have some sideways movement, come down, sideways movement, or up a little bit to come up and then to come down. So I think pretty much we might have a slow creep down before we can actually go higher. So then that will beg the question. If we're looking at intermediate candlestick structure, we have these small little pullbacks, breaks. Maybe we could do something micro like this, potentially. So then we start to really zoom in and get an idea of what's actually going on here. And you start to see there's a lot of mitigation in here. So falls off here. We could potentially say this. You know, you have open, right? Comes in, mitigates a bit, and then comes down, comes back and mitigates a bit more, falls off. We could, that probably looks a little bit better, right? It opens, it comes and mitigates about 50%. So then we'd be looking for something like this. And I think we might need to flip that, right? I think we might need to flip that. So let's go ahead and modify this a bit. And let's take off 25%. There we go. Now we see 50%. So then let's just go ahead and put an alert there. Look for a short to go down, right? Short-term bearish, short-term bearish. And that's pretty much all we're going to look at today. We're going to do some bonus points here. Let's just go ahead and do some bonus points here. And let's look at some other things going on in stock markets. So here we're looking at this particular pair. And I mean, this is just bearish. I don't see any bullish there. Let's go to the weekly. Yeah, this is just bearish, straight up. You could say we may be coming in here on the weekly, potentially, but we have to see what it does. We probably could see these prices though. Definitely could see these prices though. So $90 that. There's another one. This is kind of an interesting one. A Hyatt Hotel Corporation. So we're looking at it on the weekly, and it kind of looks bullish. We saw it break above here, and now it might be short-term bearish leg though. So here's what we saw. We saw this right here happen. This went down, and we obviously had a clear close. So then what does that mean? That means this huge drop here is a very large MB on the weekly, right? So then maybe we take 50% of that, right? Maybe we take 50% of that, just like so, and then we try and find something in that range. We have this open, mitigation of the open, but I mean, we could say maybe look for buys in here. Potentially look for buys at around $57, $40 correction, which I mean, the market has just been extremely volatile. Let's look at the QQ, as people say. I don't know what the QQ is, but people talk about it a lot in the stock market. And bearish? I don't know. I have no clue what these people talk about it for, but it looks bearish to me. We could be in a potential slightly bullish leg here. Potentially, we could see it maybe come up to here, something like that. We had a mitigation of the open, but we find it to last up move for the down move. Yeah, it looks like the QQQ could be slightly bullish here, right? We have breakdown, we have finally retest, break up. So I think this kind of looks like the NASDAQ overall, right? We could see it potentially start to move down in here, maybe. And then bounce off of here before going higher, or continuation and then to go lower. Just overall, it looks bearish. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it here, y'all. Thanks for joining me today. Happy to be back. You know, we continue on this journey to be consistently profitable. Hopefully you learned something. Leave a comment for what you want to see more of. Hit that like button. And if you want to continue with me on this journey, just go ahead and subscribe. It's been your boy B-Phil. Y'all have a wonderful day. I'm gone.